He arrived early, dressed in full uniform. Not for attention, not for ceremony, but because it was the only way he knew to honor the moment. His son was graduating, not just from high school, but from a chapter of life that had demanded resilience, discipline, and sacrifice. For Master Sergeant Elijah Brooks, a decorated Black Marine with 22 years of service, this day was sacred. He had missed birthdays, holidays, even the birth of his son, stationed overseas, answering a call that never asked if he had a family waiting. But today, he was here, present, proud, and nothing would take that from him. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Families filled the rows, clutching programs and phones, ready to capture the milestone. Elijah took his seat near the front, his posture straight, his eyes scanning the stage where his son would soon walk. He wore his medals, not to boast, but to remind himself of the journey, of the nights in desert silence, of the brothers lost, of the promise he made to return and raise his son with honor. Then came the tap on his shoulder. 2 security guards, both white, stood beside him. One leaned in and whispered, "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave." Elijah turned slowly, confused. "Excuse me?" The guard gestured toward the exit. "We've had a complaint. Someone said you're impersonating military personnel." Elijah blinked. "I'm not impersonating anyone. I'm a Marine." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his ID, his service card, his credentials. The guards barely glanced. "We still need you to step outside." The room had quieted. Whispers spread like wildfire. A few heads turned. Elijah felt the heat rise in his chest, not from anger, but from something deeper. A familiar ache, the kind that comes when dignity is questioned, when presence is treated as intrusion. He stood slowly, not because he was yielding, but because he knew confrontation would only feed their suspicion. His son hadn't walked yet. He didn't want to ruin the moment. But as he stepped into the aisle, a voice rang out. "Is there a problem here?" 6 men stood at the back of the auditorium, tall, silent, wearing suits that couldn't hide the posture of warriors, Navy SEALs, brothers in arms. They had come to support Elijah's son, who had interned with a veterans youth program. They knew Elijah. They had served beside him. One stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "This man is a Marine, a decorated one. You're making a mistake." The guards hesitated. The room was now fully silent. The principal approached, flustered, trying to diffuse the tension. Elijah remained still, his eyes locked on the stage. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The SEALs did it for him. One turned to the crowd and said, "This is what dignity looks like. This is what service looks like. If you can't recognize that, you don't deserve to be here." The guards backed off. No apology, just retreat. Elijah returned to his seat, his jaw tight, his heart heavy. His son walked moments later, eyes scanning the crowd until they found his father. Their gaze locked. No words, just pride, just knowing. After the ceremony, Elijah stood outside, greeting family and friends. His son, Marcus, clutched his diploma, eyes still wide from the moment that nearly unraveled everything. "Dad," he said quietly, "why did they do that?" Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder, because sometimes, son, people see the uniform, but not the man. They see the skin, not the story. Marcus nodded, but the weight lingered. The SEALs approached, offering handshakes and quiet affirmations. One of them, Commander Hayes, pulled Elijah aside. "You handled that with grace. I don't know if I could have." Elijah smiled faintly. "You would have. When you've carried the flag long enough, you learn to hold your ground without raising your voice." The story spread quickly. A local reporter had captured part of the exchange on video. Within days, it was online. Black Marine asked to leave graduation, SEALs step in. The comments were a mix of outrage and admiration. Some questioned the guard's motives. Others praised Elijah's composure. But for Elijah, the attention was secondary. What mattered was the lesson. Not just for his son, but for every young black boy who might one day wear a uniform and be told he doesn't belong. He began speaking at schools, sharing his story, not to shame, but to educate. He talked about service, about sacrifice, about the quiet battles fought off the battlefield. He spoke of dignity, of how it's not given, but claimed. And he reminded students that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence that speaks loudest. Marcus, inspired by his father's grace, began volunteering with veterans groups. He listened to stories of men and women who had served, who had returned home to find their service questioned, their presence challenged. He saw his father in each of them, and he vowed to carry that legacy forward. One evening, Elijah sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Marcus joined him, quiet for a moment before saying, "I want to enlist." Elijah turned, surprised but proud. "Why?" Marcus looked out at the fading light. "Because I want to serve. And because I want to make sure no one ever questions someone like you again." Elijah nodded, emotion rising in his chest. "Then you'll need to learn what it means to stand tall. Not just in uniform, but in life." The graduation incident became more than a moment. It became a movement. A reminder that dignity isn't negotiable, that justice isn't passive, that when one man stands with pride, others rise with him. And when 6 SEALs walk into a room and silence it, not with weapons, but with truth, it's not just a defense of one man. It's a declaration for all. Elijah never sought recognition. He never wanted headlines. He only wanted to see his son walk across that stage. But in doing so, he reminded the world that black service members don't just fight for their country. They fight for their place within it. And sometimes, the most powerful battles are won without a single shot fired. Only the unwavering strength of presence, pride, and unshakable dignity.